Senator Warren, were you surprised by this rather cordial, graceful tone we witnessed between two men that are certainly up for a fight with the other side if need be?
You know, I listened to this and I thought, boy, there was a through line here, and that is affordability. As you rightly said, a year ago, Donald Trump had just finished his presidential campaign saying almost every day that he would lower costs for American families on day one. Zoran Mamdani came from a very not a well-developed political background and focused in on affordability, and brought in volunteers, brought in people who knocked on doors. They loved his ideas. They're behind him. They want to see him succeed in making New York City more affordable. What I saw there is that Donald Trump is trying to get back into the affordability issues because Trump has a real problem. And that is, here we are a year in, and that promise that Trump made on day one to lower costs just hasn't happened. The cost of groceries is up, the cost of utilities is up, the cost of housing is up. And right now, the Republicans are driving the cost of health care through the roof. So I really saw this as how central affordability has become to the public conversation in America right now, and it should. People need prices down.
The other thing that was interesting was President Trump bringing up what I guess Mayor-elect Mamdani had told him in the private meeting, which was that 1 out of 10 Trump voters in New York had voted for Mamdani. And President Trump also said something along the lines of how he and Bernie Sanders agree on much more than what people think. There is this populist link, and you can disagree with the proposals to solve the issues, but you know, there was an overlap in 2016, as remember, but people that voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary and then voted for Donald Trump in the general.
Right. But recall one of the specific things they talked about in this meeting is the cost of housing. We have a housing bill called Road to Housing that has passed the Senate unanimously. It's now hung up over in the House, and we're trying to get it across the finish line so that it can become law this year. And it's all about many different ways to help build more housing in New York City and cities across the country, but also in rural areas. It's about stimulating more housing and getting more housing built everywhere in this country. It's got support from Republicans and Democrats. And I just got to say, I sure hope the House of Representatives listened to President Trump today when he said he wanted to see more housing built in this country. We've got the bill ready for him to sign if we can get it on through the House.
Well, what's the problem in the House? What's the holdup there if it passed the Senate unanimously?
You know, that's the question. It's not substantive. So far as I know, it is time to get this thing across the finish line in the House. But there are a couple of people that seem to be raising some concerns. We need to push this on through. But, you know, this is what happens over and over, Jake. People look out and they see we need to reduce the cost of utilities. But every time we start to act, someone's got an objection. So what Mamdani has done, and I think he's shown just terrific leadership on this, is he hasn't just talked generally about lowering costs. What he's done is he said, here are specific things I'm going to do. He said, I'm going to reach out there on housing. I'm going to take at least the places that already are subject to rent control, and I'm going to extend that to try to help some families. I'm going to move into getting more housing built. He said, here's what I'm going to do on child care. Here is my plan. Here's what I'm going to do on groceries. Here's what I'm going to do on transportation. And that kind of specific proposal shows both that he understands what's not working, and he's really committed to making those kind of changes. And I have to say, I admire anyone who shows up at the White House and says, I'm here to talk about costs for American families. I will work with anyone. I will make this happen. And he came out of the meeting with Trump having said he would call Con Ed to try to lower the cost of utilities for New Yorkers. Wow. Tell me how many mayor-elects actually may get costs reduced for families before they ever get sworn in. I thought Mamdani showed real leadership and real poise to push on through with this.
How do you square the circle of the fact that this president, who just was incredibly gracious and kind to Mayor-elect Mamdani, who, just to be frank here, barely won as the Democratic nominee? I mean, he beat his, I shouldn't say barely won. He barely got 50% of the vote, even though it's an overwhelming Democratic.
He beat his opponents
he overwhelmingly won.
By large margins.
He overwhelmingly won. I misspoke. But he barely got 50% of the vote. But here's President Trump. The question I want to ask is about Trump, not Mamdani, which is President Trump, just in the last 24 hours, was suggesting the execution of 6 of your colleagues for just simply saying members of the military shouldn't carry out illegal orders. He got mad at reporters for asking about MBS having ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, a Washington Post columnist, criticized Khashoggi, said to a woman reporter just a few days before that, quiet piggy. As a senator that has to deal with this president one way or another, how do you make sense of that? That same guy was this very gracious host, laser-like focused on affordability.
Well, you hit the last part, and it's laser-like focused on affordability. Donald Trump has a terrible problem with affordability. He promised he was going to reduce prices on day one. Prices are up across the board. He is in trouble. His poll numbers are dropping. People's confidence in his ability to handle the economy is dropping. His tariffs are imposing more costs on more people. His energy policy is raising the cost of utilities across the country. He has a problem. And Zoran Mamdani is the person who is now associated with fixing that problem. So is it any surprise that Donald Trump wants to stand next to Zoran Mamdani and say, oh, yeah, we think about things the same way, particularly when it comes to affordability? He's just trying to take a little of the shine that Zoran Mamdani has and see if he can, rub a little on Donald Trump.
Yeah, embracing the avatar of affordability. Interesting. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, thank you so much.